All right, let's get started. So I am recording this and that's so that we can post it later. I'll stop the recording after the presentation part for questions and answers. So Drew, if I forget, please remind me of that. So thank you for spending your lunch hour with me. I'm Sarah West from Light Consulting. I started Light Consulting a little over 3 years ago. And why I did that is I just wanted to make business and life a little lighter for people. Yeah, that's why we're called Light Consulting. So we do these webinars quarterly, and the topic is different, just whatever we kind of feel is something that's important and relevant in people's lives. So we are going to dive into the 7 things you need to know before starting a business today. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so there's me, and that's into, okay, it's going to want me to click. All right, disclaimer. So anything that I use in this presentation is just for informational purposes. It's to give you some guidelines. I'm gonna use a lot of stories today. So those are situational. Doesn't mean that you should do exactly like that. Individual results will vary. All of the things. So disclaimer. Who am I? So I'm Sarah West with Light Consulting. Like I said, started the business about 3 years ago. It was June of 2019. This is our team. We have a couple of new faces that are not pictured here either. So we have to update we're growing fast, adding new team members every few months. So this picture is already out to date. So what we really do though here at Light Consulting is we're a fractional CFO business. So you have a business or you want to run a business or you're in business or probably all of the people on the call are working in some capacity or familiar with business in some way. And with business comes money and managing your money. And rather than having a CFO in your business or that skill set, we offer that at a fractional time and rate so that you're not paying this huge salary for a bunch of time when you might not be to that level yet, but you can still get expert advice and services at that level without necessarily the price tag. So that's super fun. We also do some leadership training and those types of things as well. So when we go through the 7 things you need to know about starting a business, these are learned firsthand. So prior to starting Light Consulting, I was the CFO of a construction company, and I've been at an agricultural firm, at an accounting firm, and some different organizations prior to that as well. So I've gotten to learn a lot about business, a lot of on the transactional side and how to actually execute on things, as well as on the people side and the emotion that goes with transitions and all of those things. So this is a merriment of transactional, giving you things to think about if you're thinking about starting a business or if you already started a business. What are the things you got to know? So let's dive in. Okay, number 1. Do people want what you have to sell? So often this is where like, oh, we can go to school to do underwater basket weaving, right? And then you can't get a job. Nowadays, if you want a job, you can get a job. So it's a little bit different than back when I graduated from college. But when starting a business, I think the number 1 thing you need to think about is, do people want what I have to sell? And not do they need it, because a lot of times people need things, but they don't necessarily want to engage with them. And you can use health regimens as an example of that, right? So I am drinking water. Of course, before this, I had a coffee and then some other caffeinated beverage, when water is probably the best choice for me. So that's the difference between want and need. And when we think about what do people want to buy from you, it's always thinking about how do we get past that psychological barrier. Now, my team thinks I'm crazy because I like to do these business things. I'm an accountant that is weird and wired a little bit differently. But one of the businesses that we have is Core Counts. And what Core Counts is the technology to help you understand your culture, and then you can move your culture forward. So our thought is that if you understand areas of improvement and areas where you're doing really well, you can either amplify your strengths or enhance those things that you need to be improved upon. And we're going to give you the data in which you need to pinpoint or be able to focus on those areas. Well, what we found out is that people don't really want to know. Like they don't want to know what they're bad at. And not because they like globally we want to know, or individually we want to know. Like I would like to know what my areas of improvement are so I can have that awareness so that I can be better. I, Sarah West, like that. But organizationally and what's going on in business and culture right now is this overwhelm of busy. So we had the Great Recession, or not the Great Recession, the whatever that was with COVID, and a big pause where we all had to stop running and move our calendars to something different. So whether that was working from home now and trying to manage your kids and stuff at home. And then there's this great resignation, and now we have this labor shortage. So everybody is super busy and super overwhelmed for the most part in business. So having an organization like Core Counts come in and say, hey, I have something that can help you pinpoint your organization, to us made a ton of sense. Rather than you wasting your time on all these things that you think are wrong, why don't we just help you understand what really is wrong? And then you can make progress on that. The problem that we didn't really take into consideration is that the people that we're targeting, their plates are overfilling. So if we're asking them to do one more thing, that's too much. So what we found in that is that some people adopted the technology. They had the systems in place, so they're not feeling the overwhelm. But overall, business-wise, it was a hard sell. So that organization had to pivot. So now we have to sell something that people are familiar with buying. And intuitively, it doesn't make sense to say, hey, you pay us $500 a month, and we're going to tell you every month the things that you need to work on so that any investments you make above and beyond that are the right investments. That makes sense, right? But the hard part is that then I have to do something about it, and I have to do something about it if I have that information. Where the natural, where people are in their state of mind is, I'd rather write you a check for $5,000 and you come in one day and train my people, and then I can check the box that I did. So we made the pivot in Core Counts to move from the tool and the technology to training and helping people be better, because they understood that. So number one rule, do people want what you have to sell, whether it's a product or service, making sure that that's true. Number two, in case you don't run your own business, or even if you do run your own business, you probably know this. And if you are in a business or working at all, it's a lot of work. So, and I'm feeling that this week, being the organization, my team is so great. My team is so great, so I don't feel it all, and we can share in that. But it's a lot of work. So when you go from employee to owner, granted, some people have that entrepreneurial spirit. So whether they're just a W2 employee, which is super important, they might have that entrepreneurial spirit where they're doing all the things too. But I don't want to caveat the business ownership is this glamorous, glorious thing. Now we make it look great on LinkedIn and on the social medias, because there is a lot of benefits that come with it. You get your freedom of your time, and what all that means is that you get to allocate the portions of your time to what you want. So if you want to go to kids' soccer game at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you don't have to necessarily check with anybody on that, but it probably means that you're going to be working in the evening, maybe after the kids go to bed, to catch up on some of those things. So it's a lot of work. Again, the beauty of owning your own business is you control the throttle. So you can go as hard as you want or as soft as you want. And if you want to go hard, if you want to think about that, it can be a lot of work. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that it's this glorious thing and it's not that hard. It's a lot of work. It's not necessarily hard, because hard would indicate that it's not enjoyable, or some hard things are enjoyable, I guess. because it's totally worth it in a lot of ways. Just don't want to give you the fallacy that it's going to be easy, because it's not. Number 3, can we make money? So before you turn in your notice or do any of the things, you need to make sure that you can make money selling the thing that, number 1, will people buy. So this, well, this is funny. I use this phrase a lot with my team because they think it's super funny when I say, let's do some math, but let's do math. Now, accounting can be scary because they make all these laws and regulations and tell you all these rules about how to do things. But at the end of the day, accounting is adding and subtracting, and occasionally we use multiplication and division. So this is what, 2nd or 3rd grade math that it is in accounting. So it's not difficult. It can get complex when you have lots of things going on, and tax, you throw that in there, it gets yucky. But as far as the basics of accounting is super easy, and you need to understand this if you're going to start a business. So, and you don't need to understand necessarily all the complexities, because we'll talk about that in a minute and what you can do with that, but you do need to understand the basics. So if I've already answered number 1, that people will buy what I have to sell. And then now I need to figure out how much of that thing that I'm going to sell, whether it's a product or service, do I actually need to sell at what price to get the sales that I need to cover my costs and make this worth it, right? So I love it when people, I don't love it, it actually irritates me, but because I get to see it all the time. But it's so interesting to me when people say, that restaurant is always busy, they must be making a killing. Or when they say you are doing so well, like people will comment on our business, you must be so successful because your team is growing and all these things. And I tease and I say, well, Drew's really great at marketing for us, which we are financially successful and successful in other ways, but perception is not always reality. Many of the businesses in the community and world are struggling right now. So just because you can sell $100,000 worth of stuff, whether that's a good or product or service, doesn't necessarily mean that you're making money, and you definitely aren't making $100,000. So I want you to know this mini P&L that I put together. So sales is how much can I sell at what price to get that number? So if it's service, like we do fractional CFO work. So basically it's an hourly rate for our services. So I can sell 10 hours a week at $325 an hour. That would be $3,250 a week times 52 weeks. That's how I can get, okay, what does that look like? Now, working 10 hours a week doesn't sound like a lot, but that's billable hours. So thinking about what the billable time is. So that's how you would do it if you're providing a service. If you're providing a product, it's how many t-shirts can I sell and at what price? And that's how you get into your sales number. Now, your cost of sales is what does it take to actually deliver that product or service? So if I'm selling a t-shirt, what does the t-shirt cost me? Does it cost me $5 and I sell it for $20? Does it cost me $5 for the t-shirt and then I put an imprint on it for $2 and then I ship it for $3? So now I have a $10 t-shirt and I'm selling it for $20. Or in the services based business, it's wages is your cost of your sale. So in our case, I'm providing people that then bill out hourly. So my cost of sales is my people. And then you get to your gross profit, what magically is just sales minus cost of goods sold. So it's super easy math. And I apparently can't do math because 100 minus 30 is 70, not 60. So we'll have to edit that in there. And then there's overhead. So we have to pay for a building. You might have to pay for things that are outside of your regular business. And we have a list of 9 things that are things you need to do to actually implement a business, like register with Secretary of State, get insurance. All of those things are overhead, and if you have space, then there's more things that overhead. Now, when you're making the decision, should I go on my own and start my own business? I have this idea. I've checked the box that people will sell what I'm willing, or people will buy what I'm willing to sell. And two, I'm mentally prepared that it's going to be a lot of work. And three, I want to do this because I know that I can make money at it. It then becomes a decision point. So here I have a note, bottom line should be bigger than your salary. So if you say, okay, I'm going to sell my services. So I have a skill set that people are willing to buy. I've already checked box 1. I'm willing to work hard. Box 2 checked. Box 3, I easily can do the math and sell $100,000 worth of services a year, and I'm only making $80,000 now. So to me, 100 minus 80, I should be there. But right now at my job, I have this assistant that helps me do a lot of these things. So I'm gonna have to pay somebody to do that if I want to have the same experience. Oh yeah, and then I'm gonna have to buy a computer, and I'm gonna have to have all these printing costs and this. So I'm gonna do that. So if that's the actual math in this case, where I have a salary of 80,000, this math, even though apparently I can't do math, is on there, and I'm netting only 50. The thought in our head, it needs to be, okay, what do I need to do to either close the gap? Do I need to have more billable hours, or do I need to reduce my costs? What do I need to do to get to that 80 so that it's worth it? Because if it's hard work, it's one thing too, right? So if you really hate your job and this is something that you're going to just love to do, there's hard work in that. There's no real price tag you can put on that. But also, money is a tool to be able to do the things that you want to do. So and I don't have an emotional connection to money, but also I know that I have to make XYZ to continue to provide for my family in the lifestyle that we've created. So keeping that in mind so that you're not taking all these steps back and regretting your decision in moving forward with a potential leaving an organization where you have a secured salary and starting something new. So can you make money? This is supply and demand, easy thought here. So I just had this conversation with somebody this morning. They are crazy busy, and people don't love it when I say this because I just am blunt with people. If you're crazy busy, you might want to reevaluate your price, because if you are working 20 hours a day and you are the person that's providing the value, you might want to increase your price, because if you're only one person that's in supply and the demand for your time outweighs the time you have available, then your price needs to increase. So basic economics say that if you have zero time and you're doing the right things, now if you're doing things that actually aren't generating you money, then you might be doing the wrong things, then increase your price. And same with decreasing price. We're in hyperinflation right now, so there's not a lot of price going down, but making sure that you're charging the right price so that your math is correct on the mini P&L that we did on the other one. So making sure that you have that. Number 4, people also don't like this one, but I'm a straight shooter. So I'm just going to tell you what it is. If you don't need a partner, don't have one. So if you have a business idea, or what happens a ton is that people are not scared. That's what, maybe it's a little bit of fear in going alone. So if your only reason to have a partner is because you're scared of being alone, or you just want to do it together because you're best buds and stuff, those aren't the right business decisions to have a partner. And why I wanted to be sure to include this into the 7 things you need to know before starting a business is because I get in this situation. Now I'm certified in conflict resolution, so I tend to get in these situations, but I've been in this situation very often where we need to dissolve partnerships. And why that is because everything ends. So we have a couple of things that are guaranteed: life, death, and taxes. And your partnership will probably end before you pass. And that's okay. And it's almost even better if you go into the conversation, if you are set on that this is going to be a partnership, you talk in terms of the end in mind. So for example, if you are going to be in a partnership or you have a partnership, thinking about what's our end goal here? Are we building a business to one day sell? Are we is this going to be our legacy and we're going to retire here? Are we going to pass it on to our kids? All of those things need to be talked about at the front end. Doesn't mean that it has to be set in stone, doesn't mean that things can't change in the future. Just means if you don't talk about them, then you guys can either be running parallel or running in different directions. And partnerships fail all the time. And part of the reason that I put these little things on there is because if we are aware of why the most likely reasons that they fail, then we can have conversations around those at the beginning. So a couple things: mixed personal relationships in business. And I think the picture that I picked is kind of funny because that's a different kind of partnership that's probably ending there. But getting to not so like we're gonna start a business because we're best friends. Don't start a business because you're best friends, because then you might not be best friends one day. So if I have a gift and you have a gift and we think those gifts can come together and we just like hanging out together, when you have to make really tough decisions, the liking hanging out together becomes less. So that's a reason that things fail, is because we are great friends and now we have all these tough decisions and I don't know what to do. And now, so we're failing. The other one is unequal commitment. So again, a conversation that should happen at the beginning, if you are in a partnership, is who's doing what, and being clear in those roles. So sometimes husband and wife have businesses together. And in one case, there's this really successful business. I can't remember, it's technology or service or something, but they're just killing it. It's husband and wife who started it, and they hired a COO to kind of be their mediator so that then they can stop taking the stuff home. So what the COO did was nothing magical besides clarify commitment, and understanding what roles were with which person. And so because we're logical but also emotional beings, we have all these things that are going on in our head, and actually information transfers through our emotional part of our brain before it gets to the logical part of the brain, which can create an opportunity for us to make illogical decisions and react to things. So I show up at the office every day at 7:30 and my partner shows up at 9. If we didn't have that conversation at the beginning and I don't say anything, there could be underlying resentment, and then that actually can be toxic for the partnership and the business overall. So making sure that you guys understand your roles. If you do go into a partnership, what does that look like? Lack of success is another thing. So those first 3 years, so when you're building out a projection, and financial projections can be complicated and do all the things, they don't have to be. It's how many am I going to logically sell at what price is your sales? How much is XYZ going to cost? It's really just a mathematical, pretty easy equation. The problem that we run into sometimes is that we overpredict our success. And when things don't go great, then it becomes like, this isn't as fun as when we put projections together. I put projections together all the time. And core counts, again, was a great example of this. So technology business, we put in all this work and effort into designing this tool that is fantastic. User experience is good, all the things, just the market's not ready for it. So there's a lack of success there. That partnership has changed and evolved. The players are different than when it started because of that tolerance for the return coming sooner. And then different values too. So tough decisions need to be made in business. And if you guys aren't on the same page of people over profits or any of those type of things, and neither one of those is right. It just is a business philosophy. And if you don't have the same values, that can create tension as well. Number 5, don't sign anything you aren't qualified to understand. And the next one plays into this too. And you do not need to be ashamed that you do not know how to read all of these legal agreements. So do not feel bad that you do not know how to do that. And why this is so important is because you're going to get a lot, if you're starting a business, you're going to get a lot of things thrown at you that you're not qualified to digest. So whether, and we'll talk about this in a minute with outsourcing, so attorney on staff, or even just your buddies, just use those people. And I put some of the main ones on there. So we also do some property management on the commercial side, and we get to interact with the tenants. And it's really heartbreaking for us that the tenant didn't fully understand the lease in which they signed, and that they then are held accountable to a contract that they entered into, and just didn't understand that if you don't do X, then these things happens, or that the landlord was supposed to do this, or you were responsible for that, not the landlord. So one, I really, really encourage people not to sign anything that you're not qualified to understand. So whether that's a lease agreement, partnership agreement, sales agreements can have it. All of the things we scroll through and just click the box, like I read the disclaimer and then sign. If it's going to be an integral part of your business, you need to sign it. So say that you are an Amazon reseller, let's say. So you buy stuff from XYZ and then you go resell it on Amazon. There is likely a sales agreement that you need to sign with XYZ company supplier that you're buying stuff. In that agreement could be third party. There's no third party sales. So then you open yourself exposure if you're selling it on Amazon. Another thing that could be in that business is if you have online sales and you happen to use Shopify, which makes a lot of sense. I need to get my product there. Also knowing that Shopify in their legal agreement is they do not take any responsibility for any cyber security breaches. So if from your website, somebody gets in and steals your people's credit card information, that actually falls back on you, not on them. Granted, you can go to court and try to argue it and do all the things, but those are the type of things that are little itty bitty nuances that might catch you flat-footed. Now, 90% of the time it's fine, but we always need to hedge our downside and think about that. Number 6, it's okay to ask for help. So I am the worst person asking for help, but I needed to put it in there because I've gotten better. But you need to ask for help. So being okay with asking for help. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. You really want to go into a business with a very curious mindset and a humble mindset, to be willing to ask the experts for things. So nobody goes into the business of XYZ. So whether you're selling a product or a service because you love doing accounting or you love IT, like unless you're actually selling that as your service, you don't like doing those things. And if you don't like doing those and you can't do them because you don't have the business acumen for that particular thing, you're going to make things harder rather than easier. So don't be scared to ask for help. So these are some things that are very normal to be outsourcing. And if there's something that I did not put on this list that is like, I just really hate this. There was one, administrative duties can be outsourced as well. I didn't put it on there because that can be broad and like, is that sending mail? Is that sending emails? What is that? You can get virtual assistants now. Like you don't even have to have anything besides a online relationship, and they can actually handle your email and do all these things. So it's amazing. You can outsource just about anything that you want to. That way you can focus on your revenue generating things, because if you're focusing all your times on these things that I have here and you're not focusing on driving sales, encouraging your people, if you have people, and doing the things, it's going to be a hard and slow go. Your trajectory of your organization's growth is going to be hindered. So it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't make you less of a person because you're choosing to outsource these things. So ask for help. And don't give up. That's the last thing. So we have this sign in actually our bathroom downstairs. Miles makes fun of me because I have all these motivational things everywhere. But it's hard to beat a person who never gives up. So just because it gets hard doesn't mean that you should give up. This week has been extremely hard on our business. So we're a team of 7 or 8. Well, we're down 1, 5 of which are producing, and we're down 2 because we have had 1 leave the organization and 1 is sick this week. So 3 people are doing the work of 5, and that's just hard. It's just hard. There's a lot. Oh, and there's a tax deadline today, so it gets hard. But you just got to keep trudging through. Give yourself some grace. Your clients will give you grace, and if they don't, then they're not the right people for you, and that's okay. So just don't give up. There's going to be tough times, but you can get through it. So those are the 7 lessons. Let's just buzz through them real quick. Number 1. Do people want what you have to sell? Number 2, it's a lot of work, but don't be scared of work. Anything worth doing is worth it. Can we make money? Don't go and do a business that loses money. I have gotten the opportunity to tell people you're not buying that business. It doesn't make money. 4, whoops, blind man. 4 is if you don't need a partner, don't have one. You can do it on your own. If you can do it on your own, do it on it. Partnerships make sense at times too. But if you can do it, believe in yourself. The bank believes in you, and those who are speaking into your life that surround you believe in you. You can do it. Don't sign anything you aren't qualified to understand. It's okay to ask for help, and don't give up. Those are the 7 things you have to know. Now, those aren't really tactical things. Those are super, a little bit fluffy things, but those are the hard things that sometimes people don't say. What questions do you guys have for me?